One Flagstaff man chose to drive straight into the chaos when most people were trying to escape it. He used his own truck to tow dozens of stranded vehicles out of deep snow. Across northern Arizona, nearly everyone already knew him as Wrecker Rick. He was the bearded recovery operator famous for pulling monster trucks, semis, RVs, and hopelessly stuck cars out of ditches with machines named things like Hellboy. His rescues had been watched millions of times. He helped stranded families for free during brutal blizzards. He made recoveries that looked impossible seem routine. From the outside, Rick Murphy appeared to be living the dream. He ran multiple busy shops. He operated custom-built wreckers. He led a family business powered by diesel fuel, experience, and goodwill. But the truth behind those images was far heavier. In March of 2024, more than 2 feet of snow hit northern Arizona. It fell fast, dense, and relentless. Wind erased tire tracks almost as soon as they appeared. The storm quietly stacked one problem on top of another until the entire system broke. Interstate 40 was forced to shut down. That closure triggered a chain reaction. Truckers were trapped trying to meet delivery schedules. Families were stuck trying to get home. Travelers trusted navigation apps that rerouted them onto narrow back roads never designed for winter traffic. Vehicles began piling up near Ash Fork, Williams, and surrounding areas. Rick got the call. It was not for one car or a small slide-off. It was for entire clusters of stranded drivers. At first it looked manageable. It was the kind of winter recovery his crews had done for years. Drivers had underestimated the conditions. But the situation multiplied instead of stabilizing. Every time one group of vehicles was cleared, another appeared behind them. Sometimes there were 15 cars, sometimes closer to 20. All of them had been funneled into deep snow by GPS routes with no realistic way to turn around. Roads looked passable from a distance. Up close, they swallowed tires. Cars became high-centered. Engines overheated. Wheels spun uselessly. Rick later described the situation as astronomical. It was the kind of scenario where you stop thinking about fixing individual problems and start thinking in terms of damage control. Over the next 40 consecutive hours, Rick and his crew worked without real sleep. They had no proper meals. They had no meaningful breaks. They pulled nearly 30 vehicles out of snowdrifts and ditches in freezing temperatures. The people they rescued were not just delayed. They were scared. Some had children bundled tightly in the back seat. Some watched fuel gauges sink, while silently calculating how long their heaters could stay on. Fear did not always look dramatic. Often it looked quiet and controlled. Most people watching later never fully understood that while Murphy's Diesel is contracted by law enforcement to clear major highways with planned and paid work, those backroad rescues were not part of any official system. They were not billed. They were not reimbursed. Every mile driven came out of Rick's business. Every winch pull cost money. Every gallon of diesel was his responsibility. His trucks, his equipment, his crew, his liability. When stranded drivers tried to pay him, he often turned them down without making a show of it. Sometimes he passed that money forward to help the next person still stuck in the snow. Cameras captured fragments of the weekend. Filming was never the priority. Vehicles were stacking up faster than they could be cleared. Conditions kept getting worse. What 40 straight hours in a blizzard does to a human body does not show clearly on screen. Exhaustion creeps in quietly. Reaction times slow. Fingers lose dexterity from the cold. Judgment blurs at the edges. In heavy recovery work, those subtle changes can be dangerous. Rick was not pulling shopping carts from snowbanks. He was operating heavy machinery under massive tension. A snapped winch line or a single miscalculation could turn fatal in seconds. He kept working anyway. Stopping meant leaving families in conditions that were growing more dangerous by the hour. That relentless commitment reflects the larger story of Murphy's Diesel. Rick and his wife Nikki started the business in 2014. There were no investors. There was no safety net. There was only mechanical skill, long hours, and a habit of saying yes when other shops said no. It began with diesel repair, then towing, then heavier towing, then recoveries most companies refused. Each step was not part of a grand plan. It was a response to what the work demanded. One shop became 2, then 3. Diesel repair blended into towing. Towing turned into heavy recovery. Heavy recovery turned into fabrication and custom builds. The business eventually drew attention far beyond northern Arizona. People began throwing around estimates of millions in value. What those numbers hide is the reality of multiple rents, utilities, payrolls, and massive insurance costs. Heavy recovery insurance carries extreme risk. One serious accident, one injured employee, one lawsuit. That is enough to erase years of progress. Then there is the equipment itself. Hellboy is a heavily modified 1969 Peterbilt. It was rebuilt from the frame up. Axles were upgraded. A custom mast was added. Multiple winches were installed because some recoveries cannot be done with standard equipment. Online it looks wild and unreal. In reality it exists because walking away is sometimes not an option. Every time that truck moves it burns fuel. It wears parts. It costs money that does not disappear just because a rescue is unpaid. Online income is unpredictable. Algorithms change. Revenue shifts overnight. Rick knows better than to build a real-world operation on something that unstable. That is why Nikki's role is essential. She manages scheduling. She handles payroll. She orders parts. She tracks finances. She makes decisions that affect not just the business, but their household. Running a company together erases any clean boundary between work and life. Growth adds pressure. More trucks mean more employees. More employees mean more training and supervision. In heavy recovery, a single mistake can have permanent consequences. Rick carries responsibility not just for finishing recoveries, but for everyone making it home. Over time, he stopped being just another operator. He became the name people mentioned when things went sideways. That reputation was built job by job. It also made being unavailable nearly impossible. He handled overturned semis. He handled multi-vehicle pileups. He handled twisted wreckage where mistakes do not scale small. Close calls are part of the work. He keeps saying yes. He helps drivers without charging. He takes jobs that do not make financial sense. Gratitude slowly turns into expectation. Saying no begins to feel personal. The weight builds quietly. Eventually, the danger that usually lives on the road comes close to home. There was a call about a massive truck pileup. His wife was involved. This was not a situation he could control with skill or equipment. He was not Wrecker Rick in that moment. He was a husband waiting for news. None of his experience mattered if the people he loved were caught in it. She survived. She walked away shaken but alive. That moment changed everything. Every call afterward carried a new weight. The uncomfortable truth is that Rick Murphy is trapped by his own success. He built a business people depend on. Employees rely on it. Roads rely on it. Strangers expect it. Free recoveries are now assumed.